everyone on mute because it will be very, very hard to manage so many of us, speaking at the same time. But yes, there will be some little bit of interaction which will be there. And my request to everyone is that try and interact through the chat messenger. Yeah. So a few questions will be there here and there, or if you have some queries or things like that, then you will be able to, please use the chat messenger. Right. So we are going to get started with the presentation. Yeah. So if I kind of go way back. So I started my career in 1989 as a youngster, just fresh out of my MBA school. I used to work for advertising agency. I used to work for J. Walter Thompson. I started my career there. And I was a huge fan of Steve Jobs. Not many people had heard of Steve Jobs then. I'm talking about 1989. Apple was a very, very young company. And my exploration, I just was so fascinated with his personality. I wanted to know a bit more about Steve Jobs. And I came across a book called An Unauthorized Biography of Steve Jobs. And the title of the book was The Journey is the Reward. The journey is the reward. It's a phrase which gets used often, and it comes from, from the Chinese philosophy. So if you really look at, our life, we can see our life as a big journey. Okay, it starts when we are born, and it continues till the very end. I'm a very passionate traveler. Okay, I take a road trip every year for about 15 days. We take a road trip. Me and my wife go to every corners of India, and it's fascinating to take the road trip. I can say the same thing about life, but when we kind of start off or we kind of plan any road trip, what is that we really want to control? Okay, and I can say the same thing about life. When we talk about financial freedom, what is financial freedom? It's a very vaguely understood, defined thing, that what is financial freedom. But if you really look at it, when you have financial freedom, it allows you to control one of the most important thing in your life, and that is your time. Once you are financially, once you acquired financial freedom, you have complete control on your time. You tend to do things which you like to do and avoid things which you don't want to do. Right? For instance, I kind of go back to the travel analogy which I was talking about. I hate going by package tours to see any countries or any of the places, because they kind of make you go from one place to another based on their timings. I may be interested in seeing a particular architecture of a building, but the group tour may not have enough time, so they kind of make me run around. They might just spend 5 minutes where I may want to spend 25 minutes, and they might spend a lot more time where I may not be interested in seeing things. So, let me start by asking one very simple question. Let's say, this is an image of Pangong Lake, which became famous through Three Idiots. I presume most of us have seen this movie. Now, I'm just saying that let's think about it. Let's say that we are planning a 10-day road trip to Ladakh. Now, try to answer my question through the chat messengers. That what is that you're likely to, how are you likely to plan this trip? What are the questions you are going to ask yourself, or how are you going to equip yourself? And this is just, a very, very, short, it will take about 10, 15, 20 seconds. If people can answer, how would you want to prepare for this journey? I'm waiting for your responses. You can use the chat messenger to send me the response. Okay, somehow I'm not able to see any responses. So I presume we'll just kind of move forward this, right? So basically what happens is that when you kind of try to plan a journey, you're going to worry about what way, how are you going to go, what is your location, from where you want to go to the destination. You're going to think about, which vehicle are you going to take, what is the capacity of that vehicle in terms of number of people, what is the amount of petrol it can or diesel it can hold, how many miles can you go forward, before hitting another petrol pump, and so on and so forth. How much money you need, how much cash you need, where are you going to stop, where are you going to stay, and so on and so forth. So when you undertake any particular journey, you plan it in a great details. But when you look at life as a journey, the most of the time, the things I see amongst people, I might be able to put it down as follows. Okay, when we start the journey or at any point in time, if you are still employable and working somewhere, the thing which we are looking for is we are looking for the highest paying job in the area of our specialization. Okay, as we move forward, we tend to accumulate assets like car and home, and that also allows us to feel rich about what we are doing and our lifestyle. We also tend to invest money. So as and when money comes, we look for opportunity which gives us the highest return. Few years back, that used to be real estate. Nowadays, it is stocks, and it might be someone gives you a tip or someone tells you that I invested in this particular company and I made so much money, and so on and so forth. And people kind of tend to go ahead and invest using such tips. And we very rarely plan things. We manage situation as it unfolds. Sometimes it is medical emergencies. Sometimes it could be a situation like COVID. So it's a lot of this is absolutely unplanned. Insurance, a lot of people use insurance as an investment, which is absolutely wrong thing to do. I talk to many people who we come across. Many people don't have medical insurances. Some people buy life insurances because they think life insurance is an investment. Or, retirement planning, which is, I guess, one of the most important topics. So if I like to use cricket matches as an analogy in terms of the way we do our financial plans. So if you have not played, let's say that we are playing a 50-over match and we are chasing, say, a 315-run target. If you don't play well in first 45 minutes, everything comes down to the last 5 overs, where the number of runs you have to score will be at such a high rate, and then you kind of try to plan and manage. Exactly the same kind of a thing can happen to you when you have not planned your finances well. So retirement planning is kind of a slog overs, the last 5 overs, so to say. And whatever you have done well or done badly ultimately comes and hits you during that last 5 over period, right? So, and when we look at people who have retired, when you retire, there is a feeling of euphoria. First initial few years, you want to do the world tour and go around meeting people, so on and so forth. And soon, something starts biting you, and you realize that the money you have is not enough, and you kind of go completely, the pendulum swings the other way, and you become very, very cautious about how you spend money and how you manage your money, right? So what does this tell you? Actually, it tells you that if things are not very well planned, then you may face problems. But does it mean that people have not planned their finances, their life is always bad? No, we are not making a statement like that. However, a planned finance would give you a much better life than unplanned finance. Because when the finances are unplanned and you are doing things as and when basis, what happens is that you might end up having something which you don't want, and you might have to sacrifice on things which you want. Okay, you can become very uncertain about your cash flows as you move towards retirement, and when during retirement it can create lots of problems, anxiety related to your finances, etc. So that is the reason why we believe planning is extremely important, and a lack of planning is very well described by this quote, which I love. Says, if you don't know where you are going, then any road will take you there. And we see this all the time when you interact with clients. Actually, there was a Reserve Bank of India uh, research which was published in August 2017, and it talked about what percentage of Indians are ready for retirement. And you know what the answer is? It is about 7%. That is it. Only 7% of the Indians are prepared for retirement. Okay? For most of the people, at least in the last generation, and to a certain extent in this generation, retirement plan is to have nice children. My children are going to take care of me. Okay? But the world has changed. Kids work all over the place. They may not be staying with you. They might be in a different city. They might be in a different country. All kind of issues are there. And so you've got to, the dependency on kids is not going to work. And hence it is extremely important that you manage and plan your finances well. Now the question is that how do you actually plan your finances? Frankly speaking, managing and planning the finances is not very different from how we plan anything else, right? So I would say the first point is that where are you as of now? If you're looking to plan for your finances, where do you want to be? This is an extremely important question, okay? Where do you want to be will define the goals you have. These are basically life goals. So these are not financial goals. The financial goals emanate from life goals. So for instance, suppose I want my child to go abroad for education. That's a life goal. And that education, sending my kid abroad for education is going to cost me money. So that is the financial goal, right? So the financial goals are derived from life goals. So you have life goals, and the financial aspect of that life goal is what we call as financial goals. Okay? How much time do you have? Okay, so how far are you away from your financial goals? Some of it could be very close. Some of it could be mid-term. Some of it could be long-term. So, for instance, if you are a 30-year person and you're looking to retire, your retirement is 30 years old. But if you want to buy your first car, probably that first car is 3 years away, right? So you kind of need to define at what point in time you want to meet those goals. And the question is, how do you plan to get there? So the question is, where am I and where do I want to be? How much time do I have to reach there? And what is my plan? This is what defines really your financial plan. So your current situation, you may be able to define, through things like this. What is your age? What is your profession? Marital status, whether you own a home or it's a rental property, income, education, what are your expenses, do you have family responsibilities, and so on and so forth, right? And from this, we'll say, okay, maybe these are the 4 goals, or maybe 7 goals or 10 goals I have, which could be buying a car, maybe buying a home, a kid's education, their wedding, the retirement plan, a holiday home, a vacation, foreign vacation every 2 years, 3 years, so on and so forth, right? So what you're going to do is basically you're going to say, okay, these are my plans and these are the timelines which are available to me to achieve this plan. So what we have done is basically we have taken care of the first 3 steps. Now it comes to the 4th step. It's all nice to have a plan, in terms of the goals, the timelines, etc., but actually how do you achieve it? Okay, and that is where you're going to look at your earnings, your savings, your insurance, your investment, etc. So all these are the so to say, tools which you are going to deploy to ensure that you are able to fund your goals. The financial angle of your goals are going to get funded using this, and that's what a financial plan is. Okay, a financial plan is going to tell you that what kind of saving do you need, how do you need to invest, what kind of insurance would you require, what is your risk profile, what kind of, where all you are going to invest, for how many years, so on and so forth. Okay, so now this is what, when you look at, today, the mutual fund industry keeps advertising SIP, mutual fund sahi hai, and systematic investment plan. They keep talking about this. But frankly speaking, what most of the people practice today are what are called as goal-based investment plans. Okay, so they'll say, okay, you want to send kids for to abroad for education. Okay, it's going to cost you 1 crore rupees. It's going to happen 20 years down the line. Okay, so put X amount of money for 20 years. Assume certain kind of a rate of return on say equity, say 10%, 12%, whatever it is, and that is how you are going to reach, right? So they'll do this for all kind of goals you have. But sometimes what you may realize, and especially if you are young, that the amount of money you have to put aside to meet your goals may be more than the salary you have. Okay, it doesn't work like that. Frankly speaking, we are not such a great believer in what is called as goal-based planning. What we believe in is that you do a cash flow-based planning, and those cash flows are invested and they grow in a certain manner, and we have already accounted for when you need to meet certain goals. Sometimes what will happen is for meeting of the goals, you may not have adequate money. You might have to fund yourself by taking loans, especially for things like, if you're buying a big car, if you're buying a big house, and so on and so forth, you might have to fund yourself. And that is what, the financial plan will design, that when you need to take a loan, how much loan you need to take, how many years they are going to repay back this loan in, etc., etc. And ultimately, the last goal is that how much money are you going to accumulate by the time your career ends, and what is the kind of money you are left with, what we call as retirement kitty, and how do you deploy that retirement kitty to earn money for the rest of your life. So your life expectancy could be, you say you retire at 60 and your life expectancy could be another 30, 40 years. So you need to be able to fund that. Now someone needs to really sit down and work this out, and that is what your financial plan is, right? Now, what are the key elements which goes into the financial plan, which will help us meet the requirement, to meet our goals? A lot of people pay very little attention to health insurance. Okay, people invest in life insurance more because the salespeople come and tell you that it is an investment. Okay, absolutely wrong thing to do. But that is why people use life insurance. I have met clients where the client has 15 different life insurance policies, and the only reason I has 15 different life insurance policies is because around March, a life insurance agent came and told him, okay, you got to save some taxes to invest in life insurance. That is it. That is the way people use. Health insurance, very few people have health insurance. And sometimes what people believe that, okay, especially people who are working, employed in large organizations, oh, my organization provides me health insurance. Now just imagine you get retrenched. What happens? Potentially your health insurance can disappear. What happens, suppose there is a gap in employment between the two jobs and something happens to you or something happens to your family? You are actually without health insurance. It's an extremely important part. Life and health insurance are extremely, extremely important. Okay. Another critical part is, tax planning. When you make investment, you should be very, very careful that the investments are made in such a manner so that you minimize the tax paid to the government in a legal manner. We are not talking about, hiding income from the government, but we are talking about the rules and regulations which are available. How do you use those rules and regulations to ensure that the investment which you make provides you minimum tax liability, right? Loan and management, estate planning. Estate planning is another thing which Indians don't do. Estate planning basically means that when you disappear from this world, what is going to happen to your assets? Okay, how is it going to be distributed? For example, Dhirubhai Ambani, such a big, tycoon, when he passed away, he died without a will, and that resulted in Mukesh Bhai and Anil Bhai fighting with each other, and people had to come from outside to resolve their issues. Estate planning is extremely important. Somehow in India, people feel that if you were to write a will, if you have to prepare a will, that means you're going to conk off tomorrow. It's a bad omen. Nothing like that. You've got to ensure that the will is in place, and you can, keep updating the will every 2, 3, 4 years if the need be, or you can plan, write a will in such a manner that even future investment, etc., can be well taken care of. Another thing which people do very, very late in life is retirement planning. And as I said, that retirement planning, if you do it at the end, then your planning is like a slog overs in cricket match. You may not be able to plan well. So it's extremely important that all this, things are taken care of when you are building your financial plan so that you have a comfortable journey. Now, this is what I call as financial planning. What should be your priorities? Suppose you have money. What do? Okay. The first part of the money must go in building your emergency kitty. We have seen what COVID has done to us, right? If you did not, have enough money, which could help you last for 3 to 6 months, and suddenly you're out of job and no jobs are available, what do? It is extremely important that you keep aside, money which is required for you to survive for 3 to 6 months separately in a very, very safe investment. It could be a bank fixed deposit for that matter, right? The second thing which I would say, that before making any investment, ensure that you have life and health insurance coverage, right? Now, a health insurance cover, I guess people understand. Life insurance cover you will make if there are people dependent on you. Meaning, if suppose you were to disappear from this planet, and that is going to cause financial difficulties in people who depend on you, then that needs to be avoided. And your life insurance cover should be such that the amount they would receive would act practically as if you are surviving till your working life. That is what life insurance is all about, right? And today, most of the people sell life insurances as investment product. Please don't buy those life insurances. Life insurance which one should buy are what is called as term life insurance. A term life insurance is like your car insurance. Yeah, you pay money. If something happens to you, your family will get it. Otherwise, the money is gone. Okay, but the premium which you pay for term life insurance is extremely small compared to what you pay for the other form of life insurance. Saving and investment is the second thing, right? It's very, very important that you control your expenses. Your expenses got to be less than your income. You got to ensure, look at tax saving and make investment based on your risk profile. We'll come to that a little later. Yeah. And then what is left is where the spending on the goal comes. So this is the hierarchy which potentially, people should follow. Now, one thing which I find amongst people is that, if I ask them how much money can you save? And the question is, the answer is basically saying whatever I can save after I'm able to live my life. But this is a fantastic quote from Warren Buffett. So don't save what is left after spending. Spend what is left after saving. So you have to have a saving target. Every month, potentially, you should keep aside 20% of the money you earn. This 20% would include your PF and other contributions. So it's not necessarily you have to take out of the salary which you earn or the income which you have. But you got to put aside 20% of the money at least away so that you can manage your financial goals. And a lot of time people find savings very difficult. And I kind of think of this quote, which is very useful, that saving is easy. Think of it as paying yourself first before you pay anyone else, right? You are working very hard to build your life, to ensure that you are able to meet your goals. So the first responsibility you have is towards yourself. So instead of spending money on things, I said, I'm going to spend money on myself first. And that is to keep it aside to meet my financial goals. All right. There is another thing which I find very interesting. Okay. What I call as asset and liability illusion. An asset is something that puts money in your wallet, and the liability is the one that takes money out. Now, this is what I call as asset quiz. What do you think? Is this an asset? Okay. This is your, apartment you have just bought. Is it an asset? Some people look for a second home, vacation home. Is that an asset? Or you look at, your house is filled with gadgets. None of these things are assets. They are all liabilities. Sometimes people get amazed when especially we define the real estate as liabilities. Okay? The question is that suppose you're staying in a home. How can that be an asset? You are not going to be able to sell that home ever. That becomes asset only for your kids, not for you. The value for home to you is zero. It does not form part of your net worth. It has zero value. Okay. Similarly, if you have a second home, a vacation home, if you build it as an investment, that's a separate thing. But it is, if it's a property just we have built because you want to go there every weekend and so on and so forth, it's really not an asset. Yes, if you make an investment in another real estate which you're going to give it out on rent, or you're looking for capital appreciation there, that is an asset, right? A lot of these things also, as you buy, even when you buy a home, you are paying your EMIs, or it's basically taking money away from you. It is building, and the home which you are going to stay in is never an asset. Right? So that we have to be very careful about. Now, when we look at the whole financial plan, though there are so many components, people pay maximum attention to investment management because that seems to be a glamorous thing, right? Investment management, investing in something, making money, talking about it, bragging about it. Oh, I invested in this stock and I made so much money, and so on and so forth. Or I don't know what triggers that. But a lot of people believe that investment management is wealth management or financial planning. That's not true. Yeah. But we will go through some bit on investment management. I think we're already 30 minutes through the presentation. I'm going to just very quickly go through this, okay? So there are 4 asset classes in which potentially we can make investment, yeah? Real estate, gold, debt, and equity, right? These are the 4 asset classes in which we will be able to make investment. Keep in mind, all investments are risky. So what is a debt? Debt is basically what loan you give to others. So when you make a deposit in a bank, you are giving a loan to the bank. When you invest in a bond of a company, you are giving loan to the company, right? So all of these are risky. Even the banks can go down, right? We have seen many banks have go down. Sometimes people go and invest money with a cooperative bank because they give 1%, 2% higher. Please don't do that. Okay, those are highly, very, very risky banks, and they can go down, and you've seen them going down. Okay, so everything is risky. Real estate, absolutely risky. Of course, some of these things are less risky than others, but all the assets are risky. That's a critical part. Returns tend to scale with risk. So when you're looking for a higher return, you'll have to take higher risk. Now, people don't understand the meaning of the word high risk. The meaning of the word high risk is very high pain. Okay, it's going to cause heartburns. It's going to create anxiety. Just imagine you have put all your life savings in, say, stock market. Okay, and let's consider the situation of March 2020, where stock market fell by almost 30 to 40%. Okay, so suppose you had put in 1 crore, it became 60 lakhs, right? And the kind of anxiety it creates is enormous. So when you're looking for high risk, rather a high return, the risk associated with those products are high. And you need to really figure out whether you have the ability to take that risk. Another key risk is liquidity risk. What do we mean by liquidity risk? The meaning of liquidity risk is I am able to convert any of this investment into cash. That is what is called liquidity. So if suppose you have gold, you can technically go to a shop, a gold shop, and sell it. So the liquidity is high. Suppose you're invested in mutual fund, in equity, in debt, etc. There also you're able to sell those, or what are called as redemption, very quickly. So they have high liquidity. But real estate, if you try to sell something, can take a long time, can take months, sometimes can take years. So whenever you're looking at any of these asset classes, be careful about what kind of risk is associated with that. And I'll come to the discussion on how to choose whether you should go with a risky asset or a safe asset, etc. in a couple of slides. Yeah, I'll try to hurry it up. So here, as you know, I'm going to share this presentation with you. So I'll create a PDF and share it with you so that you know. So here, like for instance, we said risk is high, return is high, and the liquidity is high. This is also similar. This is a little moderate, and this has very low liquidity. Now, secret of successful investment. Now, everyone recognizes who this is. Yeah, this is the wall, Rahul Dravid, and this is Virendra Sehwag. Okay, Dravid could never bet like Sehwag, and Sehwag could never bet like Dravid, right? Both these guys had their own importance in the game. Suppose you have to stay on the wicket for 2 days. Can Virendra Sehwag survive? Very difficult if the wicket is difficult, right? Or if you ask Dravid that if you have to score 70 runs in 5 overs, not going to happen. But just imagine that Rahul Dravid and Virendra Sehwag are batting together, right? And Rahul Dravid decides to follow whatever Virendra Sehwag does. So Virendra Sehwag starts hitting the ball, Rahul Dravid also starts doing that. What is likely to happen? Okay, Dravid is likely to get out. Or for the other vice versa. If Virendra Sehwag were to start stalling and just playing defensive game, he will get out too. So you have to understand that everyone is different, right? So for instance, if someone tells me, oh, please put money in say a company like Dixon Technology. Okay, it's a small company, highly volatile, highly risky, but has given tremendous amount of return. Now, whether you have the ability to take that risk or no is extremely important. But if you just go by the tip which someone has given you saying, okay, this is a good company and you invest and suddenly the company falls by 20%. What do? You're completely scared and you'll get out of that position, right? So that is what happens. It's extremely important that you understand what we call as what is your risk profile, right? Without understanding risk profile, you cannot decide where you should invest. And that is the problem which I face. So sometime what happens, people come and say, or you have money, you ask people, where should I invest? I don't know. I don't know. If you ask me, I have say 50 lakhs rupees, Johnny, where should I invest? I don't know, because I don't know whether you are Rahul Dravid or Virendra Sehwag. Okay, and there are other important aspect of this as well. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. So it's called asset allocation. Asset allocation basically means what amount of money you need to put in gold, real estate, equity, debt, etc. Okay, and that comes out of what we call as risk profile. Okay, so you can have 3 different people, similar age, earning similar kind of money, but the kind of investment they will make based on their risk profile would be very different. And this risk profile or risk appetite, as we say, could come from several things. Like what is your age, what is your personality, what is your net worth, what is your responsibilities. For instance, suppose you have a lot of responsibilities. If you have a lot of responsibilities, it's very hard for you to take high risk, right? Because you might end up blowing substantial part of net worth you have, right? Suppose age, if you are extremely old, you're about to retire, you are going to go slow on the kind of risk which you take. So personality and various factors actually help you decide what kind of asset allocation you will have. So it is not that you randomly invest money in equity or debt or real estate. Actually, most of the time, if you look at last 8-10 years back, people used to do that. If at small amount of money, it will go into maybe equity. If it is large amount of money, it will go into real estate. That's not how it works. You have to really plan. And all this is going to feed into your financial plan. So based on your risk profile, certain asset allocation will be recommended to you, and based on the performance of the asset allocation, they will fit into your growth of your capital and your saving, and that in turn will decide how you are going to be meeting your goals. So it's a full thing. So if someone is going to tell you invest here or invest there, it's an absolutely wrong thing to do. Unless I know your risk profile, unless I know everything about what your other investments are, it is very difficult for me to tell you where to invest. And if someone is going to tell you where to invest just by saying that, okay, you have got 10 lakhs rupees, invest here, I don't know. That's not a correct advice. That's not a good advice. Yeah. So asset allocation comes from risk profile. Yeah. So depending upon your risk profile, the asset allocation will change. I want to just take, I'll take another 2-3 minutes and I'll end the presentation. There is something called magic of compounding, and I just want you to just look at this, right? The question is, if you have a very, very large sheet of 1 mm thickness paper, it's like, a newspaper or something like that, which is 1 millimeter thick. How many times do you need to fold it so that the height of the folded paper reaches the moon? And this is the distance of, between Earth and Moon, 384,000 kilometers, almost 4 lakhs kilometers. I just want you to think about it in your head, that how many times do you think you need to fold to reach the moon? So I'm going to give the answer. It is about 39 times, just 39 times. If you keep doubling the newspaper or whatever paper sheet you have 39 times, the height of the folded paper will be more than 400,000 kilometers. Now, the reason why I said this is because human mind cannot understand what is called as exponential growth. Okay, we are all linear. Our mind is linear. We can understand straight lines. Simple. If I tell you the money is going to, the rate of growth is at 10%, you might be able to say in 1 or 2 years' time what will be the value of your fixed deposit. But let me show you something. Okay, let's imagine that you are going to put 10,000 rupees every month over a period of time. Suppose you invest it over 10 years and you are able to earn 8% return. That 10,000 which you have invested every month has become 18 lakhs. And you suppose the rate of return was 12%, so something like equity kind of a return, that becomes 23 lakhs. In 15 years, in 20 years, so in 20 years time, at 10,000 rupees a month can grow anywhere from 60 lakhs to 1 crore, assuming that this is what the return we will have, right? Suppose you're planning retirement, and your retirement, you're 30-year-old, your retirement is 30 years away. At 10,000 rupees in a conservative investment can become 1.5 crore. In a slightly more aggressive investment can become 3.5 crore. In 35 years, it becomes 6.5 crore and 2.3 crore respectively. So this is what is called as the power of compounding. The longer you stay in the investment, the longer, the more money you make. You don't see it, growing very rapidly initially, but as with a period of time, it will grow quickly. Especially, once you cross 20-25 years period, you will see the way your investment starts galloping, right? So this is the last slide which I'll put up. Okay, so I'm just going to run through this and just go through. So high risk, high reward means more pain and uncertain reward, right? And you have to have the guts to accept that, right? So it comes from your risk profile. So usually what happens is that if suppose you are very risk averse person, you might want to put 10, 15, 20% of your entire money into high risk asset and the rest of them in a safer thing. But if you are an aggressive person, you might put 60, 70% in the high risk assets because that's what you want to do. You can live with that. Return grows the value of your investment, but inflation erodes. Most of the time, we don't factor in the inflation. And so if you look at again a long term, 1 lakh rupees today in probably 10 years time will be worth 30-40,000 rupees. Yeah, and 20 years it goes even lower, and so on and so forth. Mutual funds are a good vehicle for debt, equity, and gold investment. Use direct mutual fund as far as possible. So most of the financial products sold to you have commission which goes to the person who's selling the product. All right. But there are products which are available. The same products are available where there is no commission. And you have the ability to actually go to the manufacturer and directly buy it from them. And when you do that, what happens is the commission which was going to go to the salesperson comes to you. So that kind of enhances your return, especially in something like equity mutual fund, by 1 to 1.25%. Be careful of financial product salesmen because they are not interested in your growth. They are interested in making money. Okay. A lot of them work for large organizations. They have their sales targets, they have their profit targets. They don't give a damn about what you want. Their interest is that, okay, have I met my target and will I get my bonuses? Right? So be very, very careful about people who are salespeople. So the salespeople are people who sell you non-direct product, or what I call as the regular product. Understand income tax laws and use them judiciously to ensure that you get good, tax efficient returns. And whenever you are withdrawing money from your investment, ensure that they are tax efficient too. There's another class of things, which I want to talk about. It's called real estate investment trust. So in olden days, you could invest in real estate only if you had a large amount of money. Today, you will be able to invest in real estate even, as little as 2 lakhs of rupees. This is a new kind of products called REITs. So real estate investment trust can be seen as mutual fund for the real estate market. So, if you want to take a real estate exposure on a small, at a lower, for a lower amount, it might be much better to use something like REI to take that exposure rather than making a real estate investment per se. So that is what it is.